Welcome to Next Gen Mentoring Forum. The Next Gen Mentoring Forum series is to empower, educate, and illuminate individuals who are in or interested in the financial planning profession. At each forum, an expert will discuss the topic in the field of financial planning with the purpose of inspiring critical thought and discussion. In today's session, I have the honor to interview Sarah Williams on the topic of sell with emotion through social media. My name is Dr. Jali Jen. I am an assistant professor and director of financial planning program at California Lutheran University. I am a certified financial planner practitioner and maintain an active financial planning practice specializing in succession program management. I've authored 3 award-winning books. I am very honored today to have Sarah E. Williams joining us. Sarah is a vice president of marketing and communication at Creative One, with almost 20 years of experience in sales, marketing, advertising, and public relations. Sarah leads the company's outreach efforts, showing financial advisors and independent insurance agents exactly what they can accomplish through branding, lead generation, and social media. She has helped hundreds of producers expand their businesses, showing them how to grow revenue while positioning them as the industry thought leader since joining Creative One. As Creative One Chief Ambassador, Sarah communicates how marketing and practice management can help agents and advisors expand their practices. She leads the education channel, recruiting prospective agents and advisors who wants to join Creative One. Her knowledge of marketing, combined with her embodiment of Creative One's philosophy, make her a formidable leader in the ever-changing industry. Well, welcome, Sarah. I'm so happy to have you with us today. Just to let everyone know that Sarah and I both serve on the Women in Insurance and Financial Services National Board. She is a lot of fun to be with. So Sarah, before we get into the main topic of today, can you tell us where you grew up and how do you become interested in the financial services industry?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jolly. I appreciate you having me here today. I'm very honored to be part of this session. I've been following it for some time, so I am so glad that you selected me to talk a little bit more about social media. And hearing my own bio is so weird. When people talk about you, it's like, oh yeah, I did that. I do remember that. Yeah, good, go, Sarah. But yeah, thank you again for having me today, everybody. My name is Sarah Williams. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications at Creative One. Where did I grow up? Well, I actually grew up in Wichita, Kansas. We are technically the air capital of the United States. And it's a small little, not small really, a medium-sized town right in the middle of Kansas. And there are more than just cows and fields, believe it or not, in Kansas. And so the question Jolly asked me in regards to how did I get started in this business? I think really it was divine intervention. I went to school at the University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, go KU. And I studied marketing and communication and advertising. And I think it was just my calling. It was where I was supposed to be. And I've been through a couple of different industries, but for some reason, I keep going back to insurance and financial services. So I just kind of landed in this spot, Jolly, by accident, but I will tell you that it's probably the best spot that I can be in with inside personal and professional career.
And speaking of Kansas, I've been there several times, and I can tell you there are so many important companies in Kansas that people don't necessarily know about. So for those of you who haven't been to Kansas, highly recommended you to go there. One of the things that in your bio, you mentioned about the Creative One philosophy. Would you mind to share with us what is that is creating this incredible draw to agents and advisors joining your firm?
Yeah, so Creative One is technically an annuity and life insurance wholesaler. So we work with independent advisors to help them with their product side, which is whether it's an annuity or a life insurance product, but where I come in and my specialty is the marketing side. So I work with the independent advisors and the agents to help really grow their business, whether it's the website, their branding, awareness, credibility, social media, websites. I said that already. Back to anything from the marketing side, because that's really typically when I have an independent advisor, that's where they need the most help. We always have the product side, which most independent marketing organizations have, but really where I hang my head is the marketing side. And that's really what I enjoy. And Jolly and I have got to know each other pretty well because of some of the social media things that we share in common and the importance of your brand and your credibility from social media. So I'm very happy to talk about that topic today.
And I can't stress enough that when I remember when I first started out, marketing is such a foreign language to me, you know, for those of us who are technically sound, but just terrible in marketing and sales in general. And I couldn't help it to notice that in today's environment is much more noisy out there because just a social media platform alone is so much. And people can tell you all day long what you should do on social media, but I'm sure that there are some specific strategy in terms of marketing. I remember one of my friends was telling me that, hey, you should go on Clubhouse. And I'm just like, okay, I can barely manage LinkedIn. I understand the benefits of all these other social media platforms. So before we get too far out, help us understand, other than the target market that you want to reach, what would be the best platform for someone who is financial advisor, financial planning practitioners? What would be the best platform for them to consider in terms of lead generations, as well as perhaps get, you know, conversion going on in the social media? So share with us, what is your experience there?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you actually kind of talked about it at the very beginning when you look at your target market. Okay, so when we look at the target market, you have to decide, are you going towards that millennial or are you going towards that baby boomer? Because that's really going to determine really what the best social media platform is. And as a marketing person, my favorite answer is always going to be depends. And it depends because it depends on several different things. The target market, where you're at, you know, what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to get leads, like Jolly said, or are you trying to do branding and awareness? So out of the 5 things that you see right now, I would automatically kick off almost 3 of those, believe it or not, 2 to 3 for sure. And you're probably guessing to yourself, okay, what's she going to say? So this is me personally from when I work with my financial advisors and my independent insurance agents. I am really getting them to focus on 2 things. Number 1, Facebook. And I will tell you that Facebook is probably the most important platform for them because of who the people that are on there. Facebook in the beginning used to be all about the younger kids, right? It was the only social media platform there was. So everybody kind of gravitated towards it. Now there have been more social media platforms come into play, like the Instagrams of the world, the Snapchats, the TikToks, the Jolly mentioned it, the Clubhouses, right? But when you look overall, and I've got some statistics because I'm kind of a nerd and I like when people throw out stats, 69% of adults in the United States use Facebook, 69%, okay? That is a huge number. So when you're looking to either do lead generation with someone or to do just the marketing or branding of those boomers, that is where you want to be. Okay, that is where you're going to do a couple different things. You're going to do what I call social proof. Okay, you have to social proof yourself, because when somebody's out there researching and looking for you, one of the first things that they're going to do is Google you. Okay, so now if you have really good search engine optimization, your website's going to show up high. But believe it or not, Facebook and LinkedIn are a type of search engine, because you can go out on Facebook and go out on LinkedIn and look at someone. Okay, so when we're looking at the Facebook side, that's where the people that are older, the 55 plus people, are hanging out. They're out there looking at their friends from high school, from college, their grandchildren, their recipes that their neighbors are sharing. That is really where your target audience will be from the Facebook side. Okay, and when I think about Facebook, I think of it as an opportunity for you to do 2 things, like I mentioned, the branding and the awareness and the lead generation. So the branding and awareness, I want to break it down, Jolly, in a couple different ideas. And when I look at it, I want to look at it from a content stance. And you've heard the whole 80-20 rule, right? 80% of this and 20% of this. Well, how does that really fit into Facebook? When you're looking at content, I want you to write this down if this is something that you're interested in, Facebook. 80% of that content should be what I call lifestyle or personal content. Okay. Now, Jolly, to you and I, maybe that's, us participating in Women in Insurance and Financial Services on the national board. That is still personal content that might be related to the professional side. But when I look at it from a content side, that's the things that people really want to see and to listen to, is they want to know what you're doing, because people do business with people they like and they trust. Now, where does that other 20% come in? That is what I call more of the professional side. So let's just say, for example, the cost of living adjustment in 2022 went up to 6.2. To me, that's kind of what I call the evergreen content, right? It's important content, but it's probably not going to get as much likes and as much impressions as the personal side of it. Because people want to know, Jolly, where did you go on vacation? What have you been up to? What's your family doing? What makes you a human being? And that is what people are tied to, is that personal side. So
okay, before you go too far,
yeah.
The things that you're talking about, I am so thrilled that you're saying this, because every single mistake that I made, you just mentioned it. I'm
teaching
this
you.
Is very embarrassing. I personally use Facebook only for family and friends. Therefore, I am not active in Facebook at all. Okay, so now that's my mistake, number one. Number two, you mentioned about 80% of the content should be lifestyle, personal things. I did notice that if I post a vacation picture or a restaurant picture, I got a lot of likes. And you are right, if I post something like evergreen content, nobody cares about that. So all these mistakes that I made in the past. So thank you so much for clarifying that for us.
Yeah, but Jolly, be thinking about this, because there's two sides of Facebook, and I just want to clarify this. There's that personal side that you don't have to share all that, but then there's the business side of Facebook. Okay, so it's
That's
not
right.
necessarily on the personal side that you need to have the 80-20 content. It's on that business side that you want that. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify for that for you. So the other one I'm going to talk about also is LinkedIn. So let's talk about the difference between Facebook and LinkedIn. So Facebook is what I kind of call the warm and fuzzy side, right? The pictures and the lifestyle. When I get over to LinkedIn, I call it more of a professional networking opportunity. So this is where typically it is what they say a white collar per se. Okay. So another statistic, 49% of US adults making over $75,000 a year used LinkedIn. 49% of US adults making over $75,000 a year use LinkedIn. This is the professional networking side. And believe it or not, in the last several years, it has kind of transitioned a little bit over to what I call the lifestyle side. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it used to be, don't show pictures of your family, don't show pictures of, your children, because it has nothing to do with work. And as you can imagine, in the COVID environment that we've been in for the last, 18 months plus, our lives have kind of intertwined, right? Our personal lives have mixed in with our professional lives like no other, right? With inside the history of us being around. So people are more, I'd say they allow more grace, like when I'm doing webinars and my children are running back and forth, they're like, oh, hey, buddy, hey, what's going on? In the past, I always felt like it was shunned upon that, oh my gosh, you have children and they're in your room. It's like that one reporter that was on CNN and his kid comes whirling in the background and the mom's trying to pull him out, right? It's actually more socially acceptable now, because that shows the human side of you. Okay, so let's get back to LinkedIn. So again, it goes back to that 80-20 content, okay? 80% should be part of that lifestyle, but when I'm looking at it, I want it to be keyword heavy, keyword rich heavy. Okay, so what does that mean? So keywords that someone like an independent advisor or a financial professional might use is, what you do, whether it's wealth management, life insurance, REITs, stocks, bonds, trading, whatever that is, because that will help you again with search engine optimization. So use your keywords at the very beginning. I'm a huge fan to put actually what you do instead of using what I call unclear headlines like helping you plan for a successful future. That really doesn't tell me enough, because helping me plan for a successful future could be a college professor. It could be someone, maybe a lifestyle coach or a wellness coach. But if you say, managing your wealth or whatever that might be, make it strong and make it so people understand exactly what you're doing. Okay. Jolly, how am I doing on time? Can I keep going on with LinkedIn or do we need
Yes, you can keep going. And I'm just thinking about, oh my God, you just say something that I don't do. I don't do keywords and I'm not very good in the titles. And one of the things that triggers me was when I first started in the industry, I actually hired a marketing coach working with me. And he said exactly the same thing as you do. But I come to a point that I'd rather pay people to do that today because I just don't have that expertise and I don't want to mess around with it. So yes, please keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I like that. That's a good transition for me, talking about adding that content. So listen, it's okay for you to pay someone else to do some of that content, because believe it or not, your job is being a financial advisor and working with your clients. There is many different platforms, many different avenues from a strategic stance of vendors that can post content for you. Again, that's what I go back and call the evergreen content, the cost of living. If the RMDs change to 72 and a half, the Social Security normal retirement age, whatever that is, you still need that content, because there are people part of your network that might not know everything about what you and I talk about, constantly, because they might pick up some tips on that about maybe it's a variable life insurance policy, or where to put money based on this, or estate planning, or whatever that might be. Those are still good tidbits that they need. So it's okay to pay someone to do that. Just please, please, please don't neglect that personal / lifestyle side, because consumers are smart. They can see that someone's probably posting that for you, but what they like to see in there is some of that other things, that personal side, that what you're doing, that you are part of an association, or your community involvement, or nonprofits, or whatever that might be, whatever tells your story. Because someone said this to me the other day and I wrote it down and I really like it. Facts sell, stories tell. So again, facts sell, stories tell. You need a combination of both. And that's really what is the most important part of social media. I will tell you that if you're not going to go in 100% on doing social media, people are going to say, oh, well, it looks like they haven't done anything on their social media account since 2016. What's going on? It's almost better not to have a social media account if you're not keeping up on it. And I do want to mention, you might ask me, how many times a week should I post? So let's talk about that. Facebook, 2 to 5 times a week. LinkedIn, 1 to 3 times a week is best practices. Okay. So again, it really kind of depends on you. If you can't do this yourself, delegate it to someone else with inside your office. Hire a teenager, hire somebody in college that has some background in social media, i.e. all of them, because that's all they do. All they do is sit there on their phones, right? So hire them, pay them $10 an hour. Now, this is perfect do's and don'ts for social media and compliance. Compliance, right?
Okay, can before you go there, let me just plug in something really important. And that is that the point that you mentioned about if you don't have time to do this number of times per week, depending upon the platforms, hire someone to do. I always encourage advisors, planners to consider hiring interns from universities. Mm-hmm. They know what to do with these. You need to train them well in terms of what is evergreen compliance items and what is not evergreen compliance items. But please, I really encourage people to hire interns. That is a reason that we as a profession continue to train the next generation, bring them into the business so they understand what is the business is all about. So, all right, keep going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that intern thing, because that's where, believe it or not, sometimes the interns can teach us more about what they're doing than vice versa, right? I mean, there can be that give and take from the intern side. So I love it. So let's talk about the do's and don'ts in social media to be evergreen compliance. Okay, so I'm not an attorney. I do not play attorney on television. I do not do this. Always check with your broker dealers, your IRAs, whoever that main compliance persons is, and check out their rules. Typically, they will have written rules, whether it needs to be reviewed with SMARSH or something very similar to that, because there are new systems out there, and I say new, within the last 10 years, that track every single piece of social media. All right. So when we come to compliance, I'll give you kind of the best practices. But again, I want to go back and check with your people. When it comes to saying happy birthday or happy anniversary, or hey, check this out, we got a new sign on the front of our building, or we're having a luncheon today. Typically, those do not have to be approved by compliance. Again, caveat, double check to make sure. But the ones that are talking more about products, that are talking more in the weeds about what you're doing, those are the ones that are typically going to have to be run by compliance. Okay. So, each BD is different, each RA is different about sharing content. It's not always a bad idea to have your own content that you post, but sharing content is good as well. You want to make sure that the source that it comes from is reputable, right? Wikipedia, not a reputable source. Don't share anything from them. But if you see something out there in a larger publication that has that reputation, it's okay to share that, because that will help you with your thought leadership and help you with your credibility from that stance.
So questions about sharing content. So let's say that if you saw a piece of content, let's say just a few days ago, Social Security Trust Fund is going to run out in 2033. Okay, that's a good piece of content to share.
Yep.
How would you recommend advisors or planners to insert their opinion? Because obviously, I have something to say about 2033,
Yep.
Either, hey, save more now, or something else. So what is kind of the best practice in regarding about when you share a piece of good evergreen content, how much of your personal opinion should be expressed?
So I believe a lot, because that is your position that you're in, Jolly. You are in that position because you have been trained and educated on that. Now, you want it to be thought-provoking, right? You want them to think, oh my gosh, okay, I need to maybe do something about it. And that's where, when you share that content, don't just share that link and post it. You want to put your personal opinion inside there, because that helps also with search engine optimization. LinkedIn does not like it when you just share the post. It likes it when it says something inside of it. Okay. And you're tagging people and you're using hashtags. So that is important, because you want to, what I call, interrupt their status quo, for them to be like, holy cow, wait, 2034. Okay. How old are my kids or my grandkids, or whatever that might be? That could justify maybe a phone call to you, or maybe there's some information that you can share with them, right? It's not just sharing that content, it's interrupting their status quo. So great question on that.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you kind of explained the reason behind that personal touch of that particular content, because oftentimes I have to admit that I'm too lazy, but I think this is a good article and I just throw it out there, and that didn't help me either. So I'm glad you mentioned be purposeful of posting or sharing something, and create some keywords and your opinions in there, because it is still under that search engine that you mentioned earlier.
Yep, you got it, absolutely.
So ultimately, we could be all very nice and social on the social media platform. At the end of the day, we like to know, how do we actually get some leads? So can you share with us what are some of the emotional triggers? You mentioned keywords before, you mentioned personal lifestyle, personal situation. Share with us, what is some best practices?
Yeah, so I'm looking at all of these words and I love all of them. Like some of the ones that we might see as potentially threatening, but yet at the same time, remember I was just talking about this, interrupting your status quo. So one of the ones that's in the second circle says fear. So fear is an inherent part of our bodies, right? So whether it's the fight or flight. Now we don't want to put fear or scare tactics with inside financial planning. That's not what we're here to do. We're trying to educate. But that's not to say what the other person is feeling is fear with inside. Gosh, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know how this impacts me. I don't know what to do. So you're really trying to provoke thought, right? All of these triggers, everything that you're seeing right now can generate a lead. And it really kind of depends on where someone's at with inside their lifestyle. Okay. So is it someone just getting started and just got married and maybe they're having children and maybe they need to be looking at life insurance policies, or maybe they're closer to the end and getting ready to retire? Do they, from the annuity side, do they have enough guaranteed income, right? Have they planned long enough, or do they have to work more? So how do you as a financial advisor look at those emotions and trigger those? So what I always kind of go back to is that thought leadership. What are you bringing to the table that they're going to be like, oh yeah, I want to talk to Jolly because she knows what she's talking about. So the emotional triggers are everything on this page, what we really need to look at. But how do we target them and how do we look at it? There are certain things on here that we don't want to be. We don't want to be aggressive. Like I see aggressiveness. You don't want to be annoying, right? Because those are two things that can turn people off. You want to be, just like a doctor, they say a doctor should have good bedside manner. Same with a financial advisor. A financial advisor's job is to listen, right? And to listen about what the client is talking about, because being the best listener can turn into generating leads from that stance. So you have to take all of these things into consideration. And that's why when I talk about the lifestyle or the personal post, that evergreen content is still important, because that can address some of these things from the emotional side as well. Because typically when people are searching out for content, it's because they don't know where to start or what to handle and how to do it.
So two questions out of this. So probably 2 years ago, I had a situation where I shared something on the LinkedIn and I was told by my boss, take it down. All right. And I think it was very important, but I think at the time, the topic was not ready to be shared. And this has something to do with financial infidelity. This has something to do with where I went out and borrowed money shamefully that I did not tell my husband about. Okay. That, I think at the time 2 years ago, that kind of materials was not ready, prime time ready. And I was basically being shut down by internal person. Mm-hmm. And today is very different. So I think timing, maybe I'm right or wrong about this, timing is one thing. The other thing that I just shared about a couple of weeks ago, I'm noticing that there are a lot of views, but very little people are checking like. And I think it's also, I'm one of those people that maybe just sharing these information too early when the market is ready. This has something to do with when you're making financial decision, you really ought to take the mental health into the consideration. Now, I think the market today, people are not necessarily ready to hear mental health because that has some sort of negative connotation. But if people actually read the article, they will realize that I'm not talking about typical mental health. I'm just trying to say that sometimes, like me, I don't drive. Paying an Uber is probably by far better than buying a car. And so I think that perhaps there are trends of certain type of topic. It's good to talk about. The two examples that I mentioned, maybe I'm just too early to talk about it. Would you share what your thoughts about, I don't think anyone wants to be like me, just keep making these mistakes. So what do you think about what topic would be best to share?
Right. So I think like what you said, Jolly, some of the things maybe that you spoke about 2 years was what I call progressive, right? Like some of the things people are not ready to quite hear because they haven't seen it maybe in the mainstream media or whatever it is. So the way I kind of look at it is when you're looking at your social media platforms and you're looking at what you're trying to post, really take a step back and look at what your goals are. Are your goals to work on your branding, your credibility, or your thought leadership, or are your goals to generate leads? So honestly, in a perfect world, from a marketing stance, you want to do both. You want to do all of those things. Okay. You want to make sure that people know who you are and have that social proof at the same time are generating the leads from that stance. So another thing that I like to look at is kind of like who you are as a brand, not just necessarily your logo and your name. Are you that fun and bubbly person that's always kind of joking around and humor, or are you more of that kind of laid back, very conscientious of what you post? You want to have kind of that style when it comes to personality. And I was watching somebody else's webinar the other day, and they said, when you see me on this is going to be the same thing as when you see me in person. Don't share things that don't tie back to who you are as a person, because then people are going to be like, well, why did she post that? I know she doesn't believe in that, or whatever that might be. It's an extension of you and your brand that you bring to the table. So whatever you post on social media, make it true of what you are in person, because it will go a long way. And it's whatever makes sense for you. No one else can really tell you who to be. You just have to decide what you want and then make that portrayed across all the social media platforms.
Okay, so that comes to the next interesting question there. So obviously, for some of you that are listening now, you probably know what your identity is and how you want to portray in terms of your brand. I sometimes think that in my situation, people just think that I'm just a very serious person, right? My husband oftentimes would tell me, it's Halloween time. She doesn't even need costume. She will scare people away. That's kind of seriousness that my family oftentimes tells me. So, so I guess one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, if someone like me, who most advisors probably are very serious, and sometimes we wanted to make sure come across that we're not snobby. We wanted to help people. We don't want to speak the lingos. How can we soften that kind of image? We're not trying to lie to people. We just trying to be, kind of shape a little rough edges. So what would you recommend there?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to, and I said this previously, people do business with people they like and they trust. So just try not to be someone else, try to be yourself. Now, does that come into play where, like Jolly said, your husband thinks of you like this and your clients probably think of you like this. Like if you came in right now and had a hat on and funny sunglasses, I'd be like, okay, wait, are we having an identity crisis here? Are we having a branding crisis? Because that's not really you of what I know of you, okay? So I think there's sometimes trial and error. Like there is no silver bullet to social media. There's really not. That's why there's some things that you try, and hey, sometimes it's a miss. Persevering is not a bad thing, and being progressive is not always a bad thing. You have to look at it too of how you would handle that conversation if someone asks you in your network, okay, why did you post that? As long as you posted it and you feel very strong about it and you can back it up, I have no problem with that. That makes sense for you and your personality. So it's this gentle balance. It's this delicate balance between that thought leadership side of Jolly's, very intelligent. She brings this, and this on the table, but she also likes to have a good time. Like I have a picture of Jolly like going like this, kind of having fun. Like, so it's a delicate balance. Let's just put it
Oh
that
boy,
way.
all the secrets are out.
And you know which one I'm talking about. But I have a picture of you.
So another question that I have is regarding about niche. So not everybody understanding how niche plays into the overall marketing. Could you talk a little bit about niche? And what I mean by that is, by niche, I'm all about business owners, succession planning, but that's very boring. I mean, that's so boring in terms of social media posts, and I hate to talk about the same thing over and over again. I have hundreds and thousands of blog articles out there that I wrote in the past. I really wanted to share them because I just felt like they are so boring. So what could we do in terms of, if someone who has a niche in annuity or in life insurance or in asset under management or any other things in the financial services or planning industry, what should we do in terms of making sure that the message also comes across nicely, but at the same time, not to bore out our audience?
Sure. So I think that goes back to the personalization side of it. So you say business session, boring per se, whatever. But you have to look at the bigger picture, and especially when it comes down to social media, because there's the human side back to that. So the business session could be, and I'm making this story up, Jolly. So, you helped a family who had someone who was, coming out of the business, and the younger child wanted to take it over from that stance, or bringing in a family member, or maybe it was someone external. There's probably a story behind that of how that helped them personally. Did it help them keep the house that they wanted? Did it help them, send their grandchildren to college? Did it help keep the family farm? What was the outcome, which is the positive side of it? And that's really what resonates with people from that stance. So even though you might say business succession is annuity, life insurance is boring, annuities are this, assets under management is this, there is always that personal side. So go back to facts sell, stories tell. So there has got to be a story that goes back into it. And there's got to be that person and that human being on the other side. So that's where I feel like that will help you from that social media side.
So personalize your message. Absolutely. And that personalized message obviously is intentional to target your audience for that. Well, that's why we need experts like you.
It takes time, right? I mean, you went to school to do the things that you do. I went to school to do the things that I do. And that's why I like things like this help other people learn. And I think, one of my biggest qualities that I figured out in the last, not just figured out, but knew who I was I'm a connector. I love to connect people. So if Jolly needs to find somebody that does that, you better be, I'm going to be that one that's going to deliver on that. But, and those are some of the things that kind of come back. You don't have to be perfect at everything. It's okay to, use other people to do some of these things and take a little bit of that. And like you said, add the intern or add whoever it might be, hire to your weaknesses. That's not a bad thing.
All right, we probably talked about the 80-20 rules throughout that conversation.
Yep.
And I couldn't really help it to stress the point of we all have a busy life, busy day, busy practice, people we have to service. If marketing isn't something that you are good at or you don't enjoy doing, hiring somebody to do this is actually worthwhile. And so share with us some of the marketing, general marketing, social media. I'm going to give you one example, and then you can tell me how that translates into. So a friend of mine who started this Clubhouse, well, I was so intrigued by his story, I ended up searching, what is a Clubhouse?
Right.
How does people actually do that?
Yep.
So I got a little bit knowledge of it, but this is what he does. He teamed up with 4 other people. None of them are in the financial services or financial planning round. And 5 of them had 3, basically 3 talks, 3 podcasts a week. I mean, that's a lot of time, even though it's a 30 minutes per show. So 3 talk shows, 30 minutes each per week. And every week they run that. They've been running it for only about 3 months. Right now they have 2,500 followers. And he is telling me that he can barely keep up with the clients coming to him. All right, so break it down for us. What works in one social media platform and what doesn't work? In this case, he was tailoring to people who is highly educated. All 2,500 followers are either master or PhD in science, medicals, that sort of field. So share with us, what do you think in regarding about that story and what can we take away from that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple other social media at the very beginning that you showed the platforms. Like you had Facebook, you had LinkedIn, you had Instagram, you had Twitter, and you had Google Plus, which I don't even know if Google Plus is still around. So definitely cross that one off your list. Other things that you know are potential are Twitter. I've been doing a lot of research on Twitter. I have a handle on Twitter, but I'm not really there. But I see my husband, that's where he gets all his news. He wakes up in the morning, the first thing I look at is Facebook and Instagram, or Facebook and LinkedIn, and he's over on Twitter. So, you know, there can be spots for that social media for Twitter. When you look at Instagram is definitely more for the millennial side. So if you're looking for, you know, younger folks that maybe are like I said, just getting married or having babies, there's messaging out there that could be important for them from that stance. So I think you have to kind of pick the platforms that make the most sense for you. You don't have to do everything, and that's okay. It's okay that you don't do everything, but pick something and be really, really good at it. Another thing, Jolly, that we haven't talked about is integrating video with inside any of these platforms, because statistically, videos are more engaging. You know, they tell a story. People would rather watch something. I mean, look at TikTok and look at Reels on Instagram. You know, real short clips of video blogs are for people that have, you know, ADD, that have like, you know, their brains like this, kind of like mine. That's what's engaging. So you want to make sure that you add that to the platform, and other things behind that. Like when you do it, think about it like, and oh, did I get muted? No, we're still sitting here in a meeting and you are watching it. You want those closed captions to be on there, because I still want to see what they're saying. And there's so much technology right now that will do that for you. So if you are posting something, whether it's the 80% of the personal lifestyle side, or if it's the 20% of the more evergreen content, make sure that if you're doing videos, you're using the closed caption side of it.
All right, so let's talk about YouTube. Since you mentioned about videos.
Yep.
So we do know that YouTube is probably, this is what I learned recently, the second largest search engine compared to Google, I guess. And
I'd say it's definitely high. Yep.
Yeah, and I have known a lot of fee-only advisors or fee-based advisors that they do their own podcast with the YouTube, simultaneously launching all at the same time, and they're really, really well done. And I have even have few students who've done it phenomenally, like very professionally. So YouTube enabled to gain traction. You mentioned about keywords. So can you walk us through how to structure keywords properly? Because in terms of keywords, I'm totally lost.
I don't think you're as lost as you say you are. I really don't, but keep going.
Yeah, but I'm curious about what is some of the best practices in terms of whether or not it's YouTube or podcast. How do we best utilize keywords so the search engine can pick up those tidbits?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So my name is Sarah Williams. You can only imagine however many Sarah Williams there are inside the United States, right? So what differentiates me when if I did a YouTube channel, would be Sarah E. Williams, i.e. my middle name is Elizabeth, Kansas City, marketing professional, lead generation, social media, you know, anything that can continue on a description. Because when we look at social media, the Googles of the world, the Bings of the world, all the search engines are looking for those little keywords that help them identify who you are and where you land when they're searching for you. Okay, so the more that you can get into, if you do a YouTube channel and you have an episode, let's say on YouTube, there's a title of what the episode is called. And it's okay to put episode 1, series this or whatever, but I want to know, what are you talking about? Then there's actually a description that you can put in there. Again, that's what the search engine is looking for, because unless you have that closed caption, it doesn't know what the titles, and it does not know what that content is. So you want to be very descriptive on the YouTube channels. And you're right, Jolly. I think YouTube is actually above Facebook when it comes to social media. those are the people that you're reaching. So my biggest thing about YouTube is don't just do it to do it, have a strategy behind it. Because a lot of people will say, yeah, I want to go out there and record a 90-second video or 30-second video. And I'm like, okay, what are you going to do with it? Where are you going to put it? Well, it's on my YouTube channel. Okay, well, how are you driving people to your YouTube channel? Is it on your website? Have you shared it on your LinkedIn? Have you shared it on your Facebook? Do you have an email that goes out to your prospects and your clients, letting them know that you have a YouTube channel? Okay, so those are some of the things that I really feel are important if you do that. And I love that if you have a YouTube channel, that you turn that into a podcast. All you do is take the video, I'm sorry, the audio files, the MP3, and take that and repurpose it. So it's not just about doing it, it's what's the strategy afterwards.
Again, all the things that I made mistake of.
It's okay, I'm
Thank
teaching you,
you.
I'm teaching you.
All right, so we've been talking about some great strategies here for the last 45 minutes or so. If there's one advice you would give, what would that be?
So I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think what I can give you the best advice is, as financial planners and as entrepreneurs, as a business owner, you plan your business, right? You sit down and you forecast and you look at goals and you look at how am I going to accomplish that? You really need to do the exact same thing with your social media platforms. You need to spend, and it's up to you. Do you spend 30 minutes a week on it, or do you spend 2 hours a week on it? Where does that lie within your planning process? But set time aside. So my time that I typically look at my social media, I look at my social media all the time, but that's the industry that I'm in. But if I'm telling my financial advisors to work on their social media, I say put aside some of the biggest downtime for me, which is a Friday afternoon between 3 and we get off at 4 o'clock. So then 3 and 4, I'm looking at what does my next week look like, and how am I going to plan for my social media? Now, it's okay to plan 3 months ahead. That's great, because then you just walk in and you know next week exactly what to do. But you have to have a plan. You can't just kind of throw things off the wall and see if it fits. Or if it sticks. You want to have a plan. So my advice to you is to sit down. What are your goals on social media? What platforms are you going to use? And what's your plan? Who's going to do it? Who's going to post those things? Have a plan.
Have a plan, time management, time block to do these things. Fantastic. Thank you so much for such an insightful information. And we're so glad that all of you are here today listening to Sarah Williams about her expertise in marketing. And once again, if you are not like me, or you are like me, where I'm just not very good at marketing, then hire someone to do that. Or if you're really, really good at this, have a strategy in place, have a plan in place, time management, block them out. You will do great in the social media, and you will generate lots more leads and ultimately help more clients. So we're so glad to have you today in the Next Gen Mentoring Forum. What an incredible session. I wanted to give a plug into California Lutheran University School of Management Financial Planning for sponsoring today's Next Gen Mentoring Forum. California Lutheran University School of Management offers MBA in financial planning, helps financial advisors pursue a leadership position to grow their financial planning practice by deploying advanced financial planning techniques, effective communication, and to streamline their practice management. For more information, you can sign up for our info session on September 23rd, 2 p.m. Pacific time for our next session. And for our next Gen Mentoring Forum session, which is on September 21st, 2021, we will have a financial behavioral expert who bring in billions of dollars for top financial institutes. His name is Joel Franks. We're going to talk about applying financial behaviors to build your wealth. So with that, be safe and be well, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.